Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast with your hosts, Mike Walters and Eddie Jones. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome back to our show, the Ducks and Pucks podcast. Eddie and I are here to bring you some more info this week. There was another signing that the Ducks did, kind of a surprise move that we'll go over. We'll also talk about the Fedoran Cup coming up. We also have several fan questions and a couple updates regarding the Honda Center to bring to you. Well, first up, the Ducks got Mike Santorelli, Eddie. A surprise. A lot of people thought Murray might be done, and he ended up making one more move. What do you think about Santorelli coming to the Ducks?
Well, I really like the signing. I was just surprised that they actually signed anybody because I know on the last podcast I said, I'm pretty sure that they're done. I don't think they'll sign another forward. The roster looks pretty set, and all the defensemen out there are, they don't really fit the way the Ducks want to play. And then for the price that they'd come at, it'd be a little bit expensive. And then of course, the day after Mike Santorelli signs, and it makes me look a little bit silly, but I still like the signing. I mean, he's a serviceable player. He's really versatile. He can play, mostly center, but he can also play on the wing. So I think it's a great signing for the Ducks. He still has a lot of potential for being 29.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He played with Toronto and Nashville last year, and he kind of had a tale of two seasons, Eddie. He did pretty decently with Toronto, and then he kind of fell off a little bit with Nashville. He had 12 goals and 21 assists for 33 points, majority of those points coming in Toronto. But with the options he brings at playing center and wing, he may be able to help out the Ducks, especially on the third, fourth line, Eddie.
Yeah, talking about the tale of two seasons for sure. He had a great half, or more, a little bit more than half a season, 57 games in Toronto, and 29 points, which is about 1 point every 2 games. So that's great for him. And but if he couldn't continue that after getting traded to Nashville, which is a little bit surprising, they needed some offense, and he would have got some chances, but only scored 4 points in those 22 games. But either way, I think if he can fit the system the Ducks wanted to play, and who we're likely to see him on that third or fourth line, I think he can still put up 20 to 30 points in the season, which is all we really need him to do.
Yeah, and that's kind of a question we had from Phil. He asked, how do you think the newest edition of Santorelli is going to help out our squad? And I think that's what we're going to see. The Ducks now have 7 centers, if you count them all up. Granted, Thompson's not going to be back for, a couple months, as you all well know. We talked about Wagner on the podcast before. He'll most likely start in San Diego because of the waiver issue. And it looks like now you'll have Horcoff either at the third or fourth line center. Then Santorelli would probably be the other one, with Rakell probably going to the wing. That kind of seems what might be the likely situation to start the season, Eddie.
Yeah, you would think so. It all depends, I think, is what they want to do with Rakell. And obviously, if they want him to be a center and they think long-term he's going to be a center for his NHL career, I think they'll probably play him over Santorelli. Last year Santorelli averaged 46% in the faceoffs, around that number, and so did Rakell. So I think if they think Rakell is going to be a long-term center, they'll play him there, and play Horcoff in the other center role, and put Santorelli on the wing. And I think that it all comes down to what management wants. Like if I'd like to see Rakell on the right wing, and maybe put Santorelli in the center, and we'll see how that works out. But when Thompson comes back, that definitely makes things interesting, because you could see a lot of different matchups come in. If a team is really strong in the faceoffs, you could see Horcoff and Thompson play center, and then put Santorelli and Rakell on the wing.
Yeah, and you talk about that. That's the strength of the Ducks right now, is the depth of this team. If you're looking at the bottom 2 lines, and as most of you know, is Boudreau likes to pretty much even out lines 3 and 4 most of the time, unless he's, going to put in a grinding type line where, in the past he's had Jackman on there and some of the other big guys. But they'll probably split the time between those 2 lines. And if you look at the winger positions, not counting when Thompson comes back, you're looking at Rakell, Sekach, Cogliano, Stewart, and Jackman. And that's not even counting, bringing up anybody from San Diego. So you look at those 5 players, and I think a big key here, Eddie, is going to be speed for the Ducks, because we're going to assume Hagelin's going to be on that second line with Silverberg and Kesler, Maroon probably with the Twins. So if you look at the Ducks lineup from top to bottom, I think a huge advantage is two things: veteran leadership, which is one big thing that Murray wanted to address, and I think speed. And as we know, speed kills, and that's what is probably going to help us, down the line towards the end of the season and in the playoffs, Eddie.
Yeah, and you look at those five players too, and you look at, I mean, you can really only target one as being a true fourth line guy, and that's Tim Jackman. And I mean, other than that, Sekach is third line, possibly potential to be a top six guy. Same with Rakell. Stewart is a third line guy, could be top six on another team. Cogliano definitely could be top six. He's got the talent to do it, and some of these guys will be playing third and fourth line, and you think of the talent all the way through this lineup, it's just it just speaks to the depth and the way this team's built.
Yeah, exactly. The speed, I think, is definitely going to be the key. Having the centers, you can never have too many centers. So for the Ducks to have this many is going to be a benefit. And the fact that, Rakell, Santorelli can play wing. Horcoff could even do that too. I mean, who knows? Maybe Thompson comes back and Rakell or Santorelli play a center and Horcoff goes the wing. I mean, it's probably not likely, but the big thing is, the point is that the Ducks have options with the lineup. And when you have two centers on one line, and this, Eddie, it's a huge deal, because when you go in there for a face-off and you get kicked out and you have a winger that comes in and only takes maybe 10 face-offs the whole season, the Ducks at one point when Thompson comes back, they're going to have the potential to have four centers on those bottom two lines, which is a huge advantage.
Yeah, you gotta look at the top lines pretty much. If Kesler and Getzlaf get kicked out, there's not many guys who, if they are projected to what we think they're gonna be, those are the two main guys that are gonna take faceoffs on the line. But when you get down to those other two lines, Cogliano's played center before. Obviously, Horcoff plays center, can play the wing. Rakell, Santorelli. Thompson, even if Wagner's up there at one point, he can play center. So it's just having those versatile guys, and like you said, if a guy gets kicked out, another guy can come in and do the job. That we saw how important Kesler was to winning faceoffs in the playoffs last year. The more guys you can have who can win a draw, the better chance that you have at a good offensive zone start.
Definitely, and it's going to be a big deal, on the special teams too. I mean, you're going to have more guys that can help out. I mean, obviously on the power play, we know Kesler and Getzlaf are going to be out there doing it, but I think it's going to take some pressure off those guys too on the penalty kill, because you may not have to throw them out there as much too, Eddie. That's another added benefit, on the penalty kill. You might have Rakell or Santorelli. I mean, we know Cogliano's going to be out there regardless. He's the penalty killing machine for our team, but you're going to have these other guys, and that's another added benefit too, because if you look at it, you're going to let Kesler and Getzlaf do what they need to do, and hopefully play more of the 5-on-5, 4-on-4 even strength and power play minutes, keep them away from any shorthand situations, and have all of these other centers to take those draws in those situations, and maybe keep the top two lines fresher later on in like a third period of any of the home games.
Yeah, and the reason we brought in Kesler was to take off the pressure on Getzlaf, and the more centers you have in the bottom part of the lineup, if that takes pressure off of Kesler as well. I think you'll still see Kesler taking the majority of those important draws, and just how clutch he is in the face-off dot is a reason why he'll be in there all the time. But to have all these guys who have the option that they can fill in at center is never a bad thing.
Agreed. So there's a lot of positives there that we can give you. We, as far as Murray doing something else, again, we don't think he will, but you never know. We actually had a poll question up too. We had several poll questions up about all of this. And when the Santorelli trade came out, we had one up there. I'm sorry, not trade, but signing of Santorelli came out. We had a poll question about future trades. And we talked about whether or not people thought the Ducks would make a trade, maybe not now, but, before the trade deadline. And I don't remember the numbers on our poll question, but it was very, very high, that a lot of you thought that there would be some kind of a trade coming down, in the future of the season because of all the centers. And I tend to agree with that, Eddie. I think that, I don't know the nature of it. I don't have any, inside info on this particular topic, but you never know. The Ducks could make some kind of a move now that they have abundance of centers, especially when Thompson comes back.
Yeah, well, you could speculate all you want, but it's also 40 some odd games, and all the way up until March before any of this, would happen, and the whole half of a season has gone by. We don't know how anybody's going to produce if we're going to need to fill a spot because some guys aren't playing well, or I mean, if everybody's playing well, I don't think there's many spots we have to fill. Maybe bringing in another defenseman from a team that's not playing too well, but I think the forwards are set. You look at some of the free agents that are left out there, and and like you said, I know we said this last week. I don't think they're going to sign anybody else, but there's not many other forwards out there we could bring in, without having to send a roster player down, a complete NHL player down, and we said look at the defenseman. Obviously, Ehrhoff is gone now, signing for LA today for what I thought was a steal at $1.5 million, but. Franzen's left, but he'll probably want some extra money. But you never know. Like if you can get Franzen for 1 year and $1.5 million, that's a possibility for the Ducks too. But you would expect them to be done. But like you said, you never know with Murray.
Absolutely. I mean, you just have to kind of, keep our eye on the situation and see, because whatever's going on in his head, that only he and a few select a few know what's going to happen next. Some other stuff coming up this week. The Fedoran Cup is coming up on August 29th. If you haven't got your tickets yet, you can go online, buy the tickets. Our buddy Phil Hewitt has been pumping up the event and taking donations. He's making an Anaheim Ducks goal call for you if you donate $10 or more to the event. And it's a pretty good one. We put up the one that he did for myself. It's on our YouTube. I went old school. I put myself in there with Solani and Korea. So you can go on there and you can put yourself. You can put past Ducks, current Ducks, whoever you want. Phil will make you an audio clip, and it's all for a good cause to go fight cancer. So hopefully, if you haven't bought your tickets, you can go do that. I'll be there. Obviously, Phil will be there. He runs the ceremony. And Ryan Getzlaf will be there. I also heard that Sammy Vatanen and Clayton Stoner as well will be there. I'm not sure if any other Ducks are going to be there yet, but if I find out, I'll post it. And it's going to be a good event, Eddie. It's going to go for a good cause.
Yeah, we had Phil on here to discuss it before, and he talked about everything he does and how it's such a great event, and I hopefully a lot of people go. I saw a couple of things, people saying they want Hillary Knight there, and they want this guy there and that guy there. I think it's really a great event, and some people get to see their favorite players play. Some people obviously want Hillary Knight to be there too. I think it's a great event, and it's gonna be a lot of fun for everybody who goes.
Yeah, and just a warm up, because hockey still isn't here yet, so it'll be good to get out there and see some action. Some other updates too. The scoreboard is about 2/3 done. I don't have any photos that I can post at the time, but it's getting there. It's well ahead of schedule. It should be done for that September 25th target date. So that's coming up, and if I can get some info photo-wise for you guys, I'll get it out there. The other news that came out is about the metal detectors that are going to be at the Honda Center for not only the Duck games, but every event. It's also going to be at the other NHL arenas throughout the league. I don't know, each other building's policy or whatever. I've only been to a couple of their buildings, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. They're working out the bugs on how they're going to do it. They're testing it. They're going to probably have you take out all your belongings and put them in a little tray and just walk through and go through it. And it shouldn't be too bad. It's kind of similar for those of you that have been to the Angel games. I've heard it's going to be something similar to that. And it shouldn't be a big deal. And I know some fans asked and they wanted to know about staffing and, if anybody was going to lose their job or if anything was going to change. And I talked to one of the people that's involved in the security for the Ducks, and they said that there's no changes. The staff's still going to stay the same, so no one's going to lose their job. And they're hoping it's going to be more efficient, Eddie. There's not going to be the wanding, so I'm hoping it's going to be faster.
Yeah, it's surprising we don't see a lot of that here. You go to a lot of Leafs games, and I don't think I've ever really seen it that much, but. Yeah, it's safe. It's a thing you would expect them to bring in, with for security reasons, and the guys who are doing it right now, they wouldn't lose their job. They'd still be at the door. Obviously, people got to be at the door to check bags and patrol what the people bring into the game. But it's a logical thing to add to the arena. It makes sense for to strengthen security.
Exactly, and unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. So that's what's going to happen. But it shouldn't be a big deal. And obviously, for all of us going to the first game, it'll be probably a little bit of a learning curve, but it'll be fine. We also have a lot of fan questions this week, Eddie. A lot of people hitting us up with all kinds of interesting questions, actually. We talk about the Ducks' depth now, and we talk about all the players. We had Adam ask us a question. Obviously the season's a little ways away, it's till October, but he asked us, who do you think will score the Ducks' first goal of the season? So that's a tough one. I mean, there's so many people. Who would you think, or maybe expect to get that first goal?
It's kind of a hard question. There's obviously 18 players who could score the goal. I could go out on a limb and say Anderson's going to score the first goal, but I think we all know that's not going to happen. So, I mean, you're a safe bet with Perry. I think we'd all like to see Hagelin or one of the new guys get it, but I'll say Silfverberg. I guess we'll have to come back and check if that's true when the season starts, but I guess I'd go with Silfverberg.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean towards Kesler on this one. I mean, I know that's kind of an obvious choice. I mean, I didn't want to go with Perry and Getzlaf, so I'll go with Kesler and think that maybe he rings out that the first goal of the 2015-16 season for the Ducks. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, there's just so many options, so it's going to be fun to watch. Um, some of the other questions that we had another one asking about Teemu Solani being, Mr. Duck or the player that's done the most for the Ducks. And the question goes to who would you think would be the next most important person to the Ducks in the team history? So besides Solani, who do you think has meant the most to the Ducks franchise, Eddie?
Well, this question comes up in different ways all the time with either jersey retirings or honoring other players. In my personal opinion, I think it would have to be Paul Kariya. I mean, just the way he was the face of the franchise for so many years, and he really got the Mighty Ducks and the franchise in Anaheim going. But there's obviously other guys you could choose. You could choose Pronger if you went on a limb, or Niedermeyer, or even Jaguar. Jaguar is definitely another guy you could choose. But in my opinion, I think Paul Kariya's done way more than enough to be able to be that second guy. He's right behind Solani, in my opinion, rivaling him for one of the most successful players in franchise history.
Yeah, I would agree. I would think, Korea obviously being the team captain, early on in the days when the Mighty Ducks, we're not like the Ducks today. I mean, we're a little bit spoiled now. The Ducks play so well compared to back then when they're barely fighting to be 500 and get in the playoffs. The older Ducks fans know what I'm talking about. So I would have to go with Korea as well, even with getting that miracle season going all the way to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final in 2003 and falling one game short. I would still give it to Korea. I think a real close second would definitely have to be J.S. Jaguar. You just can't deny him helping the Ducks go all the way and get the cup. And as you mentioned too, there's Pronger and Niedermeyer too that were in that mix as well. So there's a few other the players that I would say would definitely be the runner-ups, and probably ones that some of these guys we might see some banners in the future. I don't have any info on it, but I'm hoping that some of them we may see it though. I don't know if we'll see Niedermeyer though, having been retired by the Devils and the great Stanley Cups that he's won there. That's probably one of them we may not see, but we may see some of them, Eddie, get their banner raised.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you wouldn't expect them to do banner after banner after banner and just it become a common thing. It's a special thing, and they just did Solani. So if anything, you would expect probably 5 years from now for another one to be raised, or you expect them to leave some time between raising of banners and retiring of numbers.
Another fan question we had is when you're talking about the Ducks sweaters, a lot of people know that I have a big collection of the jerseys and actually have all the ones that they've ever worn. One of the fans asked us, which one is your least favorite and why? And I know a lot of people point to the Wild Wing one. If you remember back in the early 90s, that was the one the Ducks had as a third jersey that they wore for a very short time, only for a handful of games. But that was one of them that a lot of people I know point out. I've worn mine to a few of the games. And I don't think it's that terrible, but What would you pick, Eddie, if there was one that was your least favorite Ducks jersey?
I there's not one I really hate, like you said, but if I had to pick one as my least favorite, I think it'd be that third jersey where it was purple with the teal stripes and it just said Anaheim across the front. Kind of the third jersey with the Mighty Ducks kind of throwback thing going on. I didn't really like that one that much. I think that would have to be my least favorite. And if I had to pick a close second, I really didn't like the first incarnation of the logo, at least the logo. I like the orange ones, the first when we switched over to the orange and black and gold, and I didn't like the logo where with the ducks with the web D, and I like when they switched to the D. So if I had to pick one though, it would definitely be that retro Anaheim third jersey teal one.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's the one where it's black and then it's got some of the purple on the sleeves and whatnot, and it says Anaheim Ducks on the front. That one, I think black is good. I mean, I know a lot of people like black, but the logo on the front was a little bit kind of awkward looking. So I hear you on that one. And as you pointed out too, when the Ducks first changed and they did the retro version, one of the biggest criticisms, not by us, but just by people in general, was the Ducks logo on the front wasn't really a logo. I mean, they did have the web D, but it was the word Ducks. And most teams have an actual logo on the front, so that was one that a lot of people weren't really fond of. And then, hence obviously we saw the change with the D coming as the primary logo by itself on the front. So that would probably be another one too. I mean, I don't really dislike any of them. I like all of them. I don't really hate any of them. But if I had to pick a couple, that I would agree with you. Those would probably be the two that were the least my favorite ones. Another good question that we had too was say that the Ducks didn't exist, who would you root for, if anybody? So who would you root for if there was no Ducks, Eddie, in the NHL? Would you go for Toronto where you're at, or someone else?
That's a tough question because
Yeah.
I don't really subscribe to this is my second favorite team thing that a lot of people do. There's some people who say the Ducks are my favorite team and then Montreal is my second favorite team. I really don't agree with that. So it's kind of hard to say. I guess you'd have to go with since the Ducks aren't my hometown team and the teams closest to me are Toronto and Montreal. I think if the Ducks weren't a team, either Toronto or Montreal, just because those are the two teams that my family are fans of. I think those would probably be one of my favorite teams. Obviously one of them if I didn't pick the Ducks. But it's hard to say. With the Ducks being a team, I don't really have a second favorite one, so it's kind of a hard question to answer.
Yeah, I mean that is a difficult one. Me, I'm just gonna go with the Kings, Eddie. No, just kidding, just kidding. I don't. Everybody, the Kings are not my. I would never, ever, never. Sorry. I don't think I would have a team either. I mean, it would be extremely difficult. I definitely would not pick LA or San Jose. You can bet the farm on that one. But yeah, it would be tough. I don't know. Maybe I would. I don't know. Maybe I would go with Winnipeg just because that's the team where Solani started. I mean, that's maybe what I would go with if I had to pick another one. I just don't. I don't know. I really just follow the Ducks. I don't follow the East that much. I mean, there's certain players I like on other teams and whatnot, and things like that. But I maybe that would be the one I would go with, Eddie, just because Tamu came there. I don't know. It kind of makes sense to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you'd have to think though, if the Ducks were never a franchise, you might be a Kings fan right now if they were never a franchise. Kings or Sharks fan.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. I mean, you make a good point because that the thing is there's people I know, and if you're listening, you may be one of them. There's people that are actually Kings fans before the Ducks came, and then they switched and became Ducks fans. I remember actually distinctly when we first got our tickets, we had a mini plan the inaugural season, and then from then on, we met other people at the games, and we had season tickets all through the 90s, but we split them with other people. And one of the guys we split them with, he was a Kings fan, and he became a Ducks fan. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you make a good point. I mean, I wasn't a Kings fan before the Ducks came around. I actually was just barely starting to figure out the game in the early 90s because I followed baseball, basketball, and football, all growing up in the 80s. I didn't really know a whole lot about hockey until actually when the Kings went to the Stanley Cup. That was, back when they lost to Montreal. That was when I first was like, oh, okay, this is hockey. But I was never a fan of any team at the time. But Yeah, if they never ever existed, that could have been the situation. But if the Ducks were to say move and go to another place, that would be an interesting scenario too. I mean, would you follow the Ducks if, say, they moved and went to Las Vegas or Quebec? How about that?
Well, I don't think if it was lost, it'd be hard. I mean, it'd struggle to support the another team. I mean, that'd be the most logical choice because the same players would still be there, and you would want to, follow the players that you have been following the whole time, and it's technically still the same franchise, but rebranding and everything, it'd be hard to get into it if I have all this Ducks gear and now all of a sudden they're the Las Vegas Bandits or something. It'd be kind of hard to switch over.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's an interesting one. It's a tough one to figure out and see. Another question we had was from Aaron. He asked about the Honda Center, the improvements that are coming. We've talked about the sound system is up; it's getting fixed, and upgraded. The scoreboards in progress. And he asked if there's anything else that you'd like to see. I know you've only been there. It was a couple years ago, right, Eddie? So you might not have too much input on this one.
No, I went there for the game they played the Kings before the Stadium Series, and other than that, I've just seen it from video and pictures.
Yeah, I mean, as far as improving the stadium, I mean, I think the Ducks have actually done a really awesome job. I mean, they added the terrace out there on the second level, so you can go watch the games out there and have a drink on the break or whatnot on the second level. Obviously, the other things that they're doing, I've heard there's some other structural improvements that are coming. Um, as far as improvements, I mean, the only other thing, and this is just so minor, it doesn't really matter, is maybe change the paint a little bit on the outside. I don't know, maybe make it more Ducks colors. I mean, it's more of that orangish tan with the green. Maybe if they went more gold, black, and a different orange, maybe I don't know, but that may be something they have to do through the city. But the only thing I can really think of that I'd like to see, and I'm sure that you and everybody else would agree, Eddie, would be a statue of maybe a certain number 8 out there.
Yeah, maybe you'd see that in a bit. You see that in Toronto right now with the Legends Row thing they're doing where they're making I don't believe it's a statue. I don't know for sure because obviously I'm not following the Leafs too much, but I believe it's a monument with a bunch of legendary players on it, and they add one. It's a big thing every time they add one, and something like that or a statue. A lot of teams do it, but this with the Ducks being a newer franchise, it's hard to think that they would do it even right after putting his jersey to the rafters. But hey, maybe in the future, you never know.
Yeah, exactly. Um, One other question, looking at the division for the Ducks, the Pacific. How do you think the Ducks will shape up in finishing? And I guess the other teams too, Eddie. We can kind of talk about the 7 teams in the Pacific and how you think they'll finish. Obviously Ducks finished first last year, and Arizona finished last.
Well, I think it's safe to say Arizona's going to finish last again. I think everybody's, pretty set on that. And then you look at the other teams on there, obviously Vancouver, Calgary, LA, San Jose, and Edmonton. I think, Calgary's improved a lot, getting Dougie Hamilton. Sam Bennett's going to play a full season for them, and LA's picked up Lucic. They've picked up Ehrhoff today. Kept most of their core players. Obviously, Mike Richards and Jarrett Stoll are gone, and I'm not sure on Voinov's status for playing, but they still have a good team. Doughty, Quick, Kopitar, they're all still there. San Jose, I think, improved a little bit in certain positions. I think Paul Martin coming in is great. Losing the Emmy, I think, is tough for them. I don't know if Martin Jones is a starter. But other than goalie, they've improved, and and then Edmonton picking up Connor McDavid and probably having some of their younger defensemen coming up as well and picking up Cam Talbot in goal is going to make the Pacific one of the toughest divisions. I think, other than the Central, the Pacific is going to be the toughest division. I still think the Central has 7 teams who could all make the playoffs next year, but barring Arizona, I think all the other 6 teams in the Pacific have a chance. But I still think the Ducks are just a little bit better. I think Vancouver's definitely not going to get second, like they did. They have it probably around the bottom again. I don't think they've improved much. So I think the Ducks should win it, but there's going to be a lot of competition.
I agree with you. I think the Ducks will win it. I think Arizona will be, down towards the bottom, if not the bottom, unfortunately for them. And in between, I think it's gonna kind of be a big race. I mean, Edmonton's gonna do better. I don't know if they'll make the playoffs, but they might push for one of those wild card spots. Like you said, Calgary's gotten much better with Hamilton, and if they can stay healthy, the defense in Calgary improves, and they'll be doing much better. They may end up in second behind the Ducks. The Kings, I think they might do better. They're rested. They signed a few players, Lucic and whatnot, as we talked about before on here. So they may make the playoffs as either third or maybe the wild card as well. I think Vancouver and San Jose are probably big wild cards, Eddie. Vancouver obviously losing Bieksa, and we picked him up. Going with the Sedins, I don't know. That team is so up and down. They could either miss the playoffs or they could maybe get third or fourth. It's just going to be tough. And same with San Jose. It's just going to be a battle with them too. San Jose gave us all kinds of problems last year, but then down the stretch they just couldn't make the playoffs. So I think it's going to be exciting times though for sure, and I think it's going to be a lot of tough battles in all these games that the Ducks are going to play, Eddie.
Yeah, for sure. And I forgot to mention Vancouver, obviously. But I think they just have too many question marks. Trading Eddie Lack and relying on Ryan Miller, who's a little bit shaky last season as their starter goalie, and obviously the Sedins are they're still their two top guys, and they're not getting any younger. And trading Bonino, who was a great player for them last year, for Sutter from the Penguins, and just a lot of question marks in the moves they've made, and how this team's going to line up, and who's really going to carry the load for them if the Sedins can still do it. So I think that there's definitely some worry going into the season in Vancouver.
Definitely, and we'll have to monitor all the Pacific teams and see how they do. The only other real news that came up this week was something we talked about before, and people are up in arms about it again. Eddie, is the Adidas is going to do the jerseys not next season but in 2 years, which they're already working with Reebok. I know some people didn't realize this, but some of my contacts that when I email them at Reebok, their email addresses are Reebok.com, but they also go to adidasgroup.com. So they're working together. There's not going to be any changes that I've been made aware of as far as I know for next season. But I know a lot of people are worried, 2 years from now, that there's going to be all these kind of ads and all this kind of stuff going on. People wanted to know what our take is, and I think you and I just give it a big resounding no, Eddie.
Yeah, I know. I think people get a little bit ahead of themselves. Obviously, ads have not been confirmed yet. I think just with Adidas taking over the jerseys and their experience with ads on jerseys in soccer, I think it opens the door for the possibility of the NHL including ads on their jerseys. Obviously, this came up around this time last year where there was rumor that ads would be incorporated on jerseys in the future, and a lot of people met it with the same criticism they did now. But I think it all depends on how they add it. I mean, I'm still not for having ads on hockey jerseys. I love how they look on soccer jerseys. I mean, they don't look bad. I think having a big logo on the soccer jerseys would look kind of silly because they've had the ads for so long. But putting it on a hockey jersey where the logo and the the team logo has been the big part of the jersey for so many years, I think changing it now would be detrimental for fans to see now. I mean, if you went 20 years from now and kids are used to having ads on jerseys, they'd be in the same stance of soccer jerseys right now. But I think with all the fans right now, I think you'd be hard pressed to find any fans who are for having ads on jerseys.
Yeah, you mentioned that. What's kind of funny too that some people don't realize is you actually technically already do have ads on our jerseys, which I know when you look at it you don't think of it, but when you actually look at it, there actually is an NHL logo in the neck area, which is kind of an ad because it's kind of promoting the league. It's not really an ad per se, but I'm just saying there's a label on there, and there's also the Reebok label on usually the bottom corner. Just like everybody remembers the old jerseys, Nike used to have the swoosh on theirs, star or whatnot. They had the little star and whatnot. So there's some of that on there. So I don't know. Maybe we just see Adidas label on the bottom there instead of Reebok, Eddie.
Yeah, and you got to look at the money this generates for teams too. I mean, the figures. I'm going to quote soccer for figures, but obviously they're going to be different, and the value in a logo for a soccer team is more than hockey. But For example, with Manchester United, Chevrolet paid hundreds of millions of dollars to put their logo over 7 years. I believe it was over $500 million for 7 years to put their logo on Manchester United's jerseys. And I mean, the amount of money it generates for a team is immense. And if they can do that for hockey, I mean, it might not matter what the fans think. If you can generate $100 million, I mean, for putting a team logo on your jersey, I mean, for putting a company logo on your jersey, I think it'll be hard for them to listen to the fans, if they can generate that type of money.
Yeah, and if we had that type of money, we would put Ducks and Pucks logo all over the Ducks jerseys. But we're not that high up yet. But no, I mean, but seriously, yeah, you're right. I mean, if they're gonna pay big money, you may see that. And I know the response. I mean, you basically got most people are saying, you know what, for lack of a better term, screw this. I'm not going to buy jerseys. That's what I've seen is a resounding theme on social media and even in our own staff too. Everybody, and I agree. I don't want to have a big Ford or Chevy or whatever. I mean, even if I like those cars, it doesn't matter to me. I don't want to see a huge logo distracting from the team logo of any team in the NHL. So that's one side of it. The other side you have people saying, and that there's some people like this, Eddie. They're just going to go, I don't care. I'm just going to buy it anyways. They're just going to go for it. It's probably a smaller percentage, but that's what's going to happen. The third option, and I talked about this with some of our staff, is in the way that the logos are put on. And I know, Eddie, soccer, we talked about this. Some of the stuff is glued. Sometimes maybe it might be stitched, like some of the patches they have in the NHL. And I'll tell you, if the stuff is glued on, Monkey Sports will be more than happy to remove it for you because they've actually fixed some of my older jerseys where they will take off the heat pressed stuff and fix it. So that's an option for you. I know it's a hassle and I know we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but I'm just saying that's an option. Or I have a really great tailor down the street on Orange and Anaheim area that they'll gladly take off stuff for a small amount. And I mean, again, I know it's a hassle, and we're getting ahead, but those are some options, Eddie. I think still the majority, though, is a resounding no.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think with me, it would have to be, I'd have to see how it would look first. I mean, a lot of speculation is, and what people are putting on Twitter and Facebook is a soccer jersey on a hockey jersey. That's basically, they're putting the big logo in front, the logo with the team logo really small, and I doubt that's the way the NHL would go. I don't think they would copy the way soccer jerseys are. I don't think that works on an NHL jersey. I think we'd have to wait and see how they would do it, but I really just don't think there's any way to incorporate it that the fans are going to like it.
I agree. I just don't see any way of doing it other than them, taking the Reebok logo on the bottom on that, that gray rectangle that you see down there and changing the words to Adidas on there. That's the only thing I can really see. So we'll just, as we always do, we'll keep our eye on it and let you know if we hear anything that's going to happen. But for next season, we're good to go. And we'll keep you guys updated. Thomas has been cranking out a lot of articles on the blog. If you've seen him on there, he's been doing all the prospects. So if you want any info on that, he's just been doing one. It seems like almost every day, Eddie, he's been on there. Really, he's just been like our all-star cranking it out because I know August is such a dead time for the month. So check those out. We also have a lot of poll questions up. The big one we had was for the alternate captain, and a resounding group of people picked Kesler to get the A next season, which wasn't really a surprise, Eddie, but in the distant second was Andrew Caggiano. Any thoughts on those two getting the A next year?
Yeah, I think those are the two most likely choices. I think with if Kesler had gotten in his first year, it would have been a little bit surprising, but from what he showed last year, I think he's definitely everybody's number one choice, and obviously the poll shows that. And then Caggiano being here for so long, being the Iron Man, I think he's definitely a good second choice. But any of the guys we mentioned and even put in the poll are definitely good candidates for the A.
Yeah, and again, we'll have to wait and see, when the preseason and close to the beginning of the season gets done. And again, we'll keep you guys updated. We really appreciate everybody's support, and hopefully we'll see you in a week.